How's it going? Welcome to my late night spook show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and what have you guys been up to lately? You guys want to know how much money I've spent on horror comics this week? You don't want to know how much money I've spent on horror comics this week. Anyway, let's do a quick video. This is going to be my top 10 favorite vampire movies. My favorite horror movies featuring vampires. So comedies like Once Bitten and Love at First Bite and Dracula Dead and Loving It and Dracula and Son. Those are all great, but let's just talk about the ones that are a little more serious, like the more on the horror side. There are some of these movies in this list will have a lot of comedic moments as well, and some are straight up horror comedies. But anyway, yeah, chances are your favorite might not be on this list. I don't know. Let me know what your choices are in the comments below. These are just my opinion. These are my favorites, and I'm probably leaving a few out. If I do, I'm going to name them in the description below. So read the description for all the ones that I missed, I didn't think of, and just didn't remember in time to make this list. There's a lot of vampire movies, too. There's a whole lot, so there's a lot I could have went with. Narrowing it down to 10 was really tough, but let's go and get started. Let's go and get right into it. These aren't really in any strict order, except for maybe the top 3 or 4, but anyway, who cares? Number 10 is Tales from the Crypt presents Bordello of Blood. I know. This is a bad movie. I realize that. And when I first saw it, I didn't like it because I thought Demon Knight was way better. Demon Knight was, of course, the first spin-off of the awesome Tales from the Crypt TV series based on the equally awesome EC comics from the 1950s of the same name. And when I first saw this, I was kind of let down, but it really grew on me over the years. And the thing is, it's a bad movie, and I don't think it's supposed to be anything but. It doesn't try to be anything but. If you take it too seriously, then that's probably your own fault. You know, I get it. It has some bad acting, some annoying characters, some really cheesy moments. It's really campy and over the top, but it's a lot of fun. I think this movie's a blast. The worst thing a movie can be, in my opinion, is boring. And this movie is never boring. I never feel bored when I'm watching this. I always have a great time. Again, I know it's bad. There's bad acting. There's a lot of flaws. It's got problems. All the problems you have this movie, I have the same problems with the movie. I know it's flawed. It's not an intricate masterpiece. It's not going to change your life and move you. It's just a fun way to kill an hour and a half. You know, it's a blast. I think this movie's a hoot. You know, it's a very fun movie. It's very entertaining. But I do have it pretty low on the list because, yeah, it does have a lot of problems. But Dennis Miller is really entertaining. The lead vampire, Lilith, played by Angie Everhart, is a pretty cool villainess. Again, you just don't take it seriously. How can you go wrong with Dennis Miller teaming up with Chris Sarandon with super soakers filled with holy water and killing vampires while Ballroom Blitz plays? Again, if you take a movie that has that scene in it seriously, then that's on you. But yeah, I know it's a bad movie, but it's so bad it's good. It's a guilty pleasure, and I love it. But anyway, number 9 is going to be Subspecies. Now, I have the complete collection here, all 4 movies, the first 4 as well as Vampire Journals. It features Radu, played by Anders Hove. He's a really badass, really creepy, animalistic vampire. He's just fierce and ferocious, and the makeup job is amazing. And he really makes these movies way better than they probably would have been without him. Really interesting storylines, too. Every movie is kind of different, you know. They share great continuity. They're all connected, of course, because it's a franchise, but there's a lot of different things going on. Radu has different motivations and different goals in every movie, and he's kind of the main character. He's the main villain, but he's kind of the main focus, and he really drives these movies. Like I said, he's definitely the reason to watch him, because he's just great. Andrew Hoves does a great job, and yeah, I definitely recommend getting this collection because it has all 4 of them plus Vampire Journals. And I think my favorite is probably the first 2, Subspecies, and then Subspecies 2, Bloodstone, and there's Subspecies 3, Bloodlust, and Subspecies 4, Bloodstorm. Great movies. Full Moon, they were distributed by Full Moon Features, produced by Charles Band, of course. Angus Scrimm is in here too. Really cool movies. Radu's a badass vampire, and these are definitely worth checking out. Just to pick one, since this is my top 10 vampire movies, I'll probably just say the first one. Subspecies. Good stuff. One of my favorite Full Moon properties. Alright, number 8 is Near Dark. And this would probably be higher in the list. It's often overshadowed by Lost Boys, which came out the same year. But it's a really good movie. I really love Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton playing vampires. It's got a pretty cool storyline. They don't always feel like vampires. I don't think there's ever really a scene that shows their fangs very well. It's been a while since I watched this. It's not fresh in my mind. I remember liking it a lot. and they kind of seem more like superpowered zombies, or just maybe you know, some kind of supernatural creatures that like can't be killed by ordinary means, you know, by just you know, normal weapons and stuff. But it's a really cool movie, no matter how you look at it. Even if it doesn't totally feel like a traditional vampire movie, it's still awesome, and it's still one of the best vampire movies for sure. So if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and check it out. Near Dark, my number 8 choice. Alright, number 7 is going to be Count Yorga Vampire, and I have a double feature here with Count Yorga Vampire and its sequel, The Return of Count Yorga, which doesn't really share any continuity with the first one. They don't even explain how he comes back after being killed at the end of the first one. But yeah, these are both really good. Robert Quarry plays the titular vampire character, and he's kind of similar to Dracula, but he puts his own spin on it, and he's really fun to watch. Now I've heard that the Count Yorga Vampires are originally supposed to be a porno, and it was actually Robert Quarry's idea to make it you know, taken more seriously and be like an actual movie. So I don't know if that's true or not, but hey, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. It's still, there are some things that feel like it is a very like sexual movie for sure, especially for back then in 1970 when it came out. But yeah, I definitely recommend these. Aside from all the like classic vampire movies, you know, I think this is one of the best of kind of like the older era, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah, Count Yorga, check him out. All right, number 6 is John Carpenter's Vampires, and I'm surprised how many people don't like this movie. I think it's great, mostly because James Woods plays a badass main character. He's just so awesome. He's so heroic and just, but he's kind of a jerk too. He's really fun to watch. He's funny and he beats the crap out of everybody. And it's just really awesome. And the main villain, Valak, played by Thomas Ian Griffith, is a great vampire, very underrated. You don't hear him talked about very much. He's great. He's just, the scene where he, it's a bunch of vampire hunters, and the scene where he crashes the party and just rips everybody to shreds with no mercy. It's very violent and very bloody. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's unexpected. He just comes in and really cleans house. James Woods and another guy are the only survivors, and they try to, you know, get revenge against Valak before he can, you know, make himself more powerful. But yeah, their entire team was pretty cool. But yeah, Jack Crow, played by James Woods, is again one of my favorite horror heroes, and Valak is one of my favorite movie vampires. So check it out. And of course, it's directed by my favorite director, John Carpenter. Yeah, this came out in the late '90s, '98, I believe. It doesn't get the credit it deserves. I'm surprised how many people bash it. It was followed by 2 sequels, which weren't very good at all, but definitely recommend the first one. I think it's underrated. It's definitely worth a watch. Alright, so number 5? Number 5, From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, the thing about this movie is, when I first watched it, being a big fan of, you know, Quentin Tarantino, who co-wrote and produced this one, I think, and Robert Rodriguez, who directed it, and also I'm a fan of George Clooney and Harvey Keitel, all of the cast, all of the people behind it. I don't really know much about it, and the first, like, maybe 30 minutes or so, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, involves the Gecko brothers, who are, like, convicts on the run. They're criminals, you know, they're killers, they're thieves. Quentin Tarantino is Richie Gecko's even a rapist and a sex offender. They're just really, really crappy people. They're lowlives. But it's interesting to have a movie where the protagonists are really despicable, but you kind of sort of root for them at the same time. You find them kind of endearing and at least interesting to watch. But anyway, the first time I watched this, I had no idea it was a horror movie, and I didn't even know it had vampires in it. But yeah, it follows them. They kidnap a family. They flee the U.S. They cross the border to Mexico. They go to a bar, and at that point, I'm just like, okay, they got away. They're in a bar. Where can the story go from here? And then all of a sudden, vampires come out of nowhere, and it's just like, whoa! I was like, okay, this is a horror movie with bloodsuckers. Wow, I didn't see that coming. And yeah, like if the whole movie had been about the Gecko brothers, I still would have probably loved it just as much. And some of my favorite scenes even occur even before the vampires are introduced. But it's still an awesome vampire movie. It's a lot of fun. It starts out really serious. The first, like, 30 minutes or whatever with the Gecko brothers is, like, really serious. And the time the vampires get here, it just hits the fan. It becomes just a really fun, amusing movie. And I will say some of the vampires, the makeup looks a little strange. They look kind of more like zombies. Some of them look like bats or even snakes or like lizard, some kind of reptilian creatures. But it's a lot of fun. Cheech Marin and Danny Trejo are in it, and they're a lot of fun. Great cast. Really, really, really cool movie. Tom Savini's in it. as a biker, kind of similar to his character in Dawn of the Dead, sort of. But yeah, it's a great movie. It's a lot of fun, and if you haven't seen it yet, which you probably have, but just in case you haven't, I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorite vampire movies, and even though I had no idea it had vampires in it the first time I saw it, and which is kind of cool, caught me by surprise. All right, so number 4 is Salem's Lot, the original. I like the more modern adaptation from 2004 with Rob Lowe, but I definitely prefer this one. The newer one's probably closer to the book overall, because Kurt Barlow, the head vampire in the newer one, is a lot closer to his novel counterpart than this one. Of course, it's based on the Stephen King book, the novel, which was, I think it was the first Stephen King book I ever read, and I love it. And this movie takes a lot of liberties, but I'd say it overall does it justice, and it's really great in its own right. One of the main differences is that the head vampire, Kurt Barlow, has a lot more in common with Count Orlok from Nosferatu, the 1922 silent film, than he does with his counterpart from Stephen King's original story. But I don't mind it at all. He's really creepy, really mysterious. He has no dialogue, no lines. He's really monstrous, just a demonic fanged creature. And all the other vampires are great too. All the characters are interesting. There's a TV movie. It was originally a two-parter. I saw it on VHS years ago. And I rented it from the video store, and the 2 different tapes were out of order, so I watched part 2 before I watched part 1 the first time I saw it, and I was like, they killed the head vampire already, and I watched part 1, and I was like, oh my god, I watched them out of order. They were in the wrong case, and I should have paid attention. I should have looked at the tape, but I didn't think I had to. But yeah, just a funny story. This is a great movie. I love it. But I think I've already reviewed this. I've talked about it on the channel before, so let's move on. I'll just sum up by saying check it out if you haven't already. All right, so now we're into the top 3, right? So number 3, Dracula. All of them, all the adaptations. If I had them in separate slots, I would have taken up this whole list. There would have been like at least 6 Dracula movies on here, and I wouldn't be able to talk about all the other great vampire movies. So yeah, those all in the 1931 Universal classic with Bela Lugosi. All the Hammer movies, the Hammer Dracula movies featuring Christopher Lee are great, especially the first one, Horror Dracula. The 1979 Frank Langella Dracula movie is really good. And of course, the 1992 Dracula film with Gary Oldman, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Bram Stoker's Dracula. They're all really good, and pretty much any other movies featuring Dracula, most of them are really great too. But those are my favorites. But I'll be here all day if I name off all the different adaptations of Dracula. And even if I name all the good ones, I'll still be here all day. So let's go and move on. Number 2, of course, is The Lost Boys. Need I say more? I don't even think I need to go into detail. I love this movie. You probably love this movie. Everybody loves this movie. David, played by Kiefer Sutherland, is a great vampire. He's really, really intimidating, but really charming at the same time. Jason Patric plays Michael, one of the main characters who becomes a vampire himself. Corey Haim plays his brother Sam. And they're great. The acting's great. Edward Herrmann's great. Diane Wiest is great. I love the cast. I love the town, Santa Carla. I love all the scenery, the California atmosphere, and I love all the scenes of the vampires at night. They're partying all the time, and they're young. They resemble like younger teenagers, but they might be hundreds of years old for all we know. But yeah, it's a very, very fun movie, and it's very, very rewarding. It's very satisfying to watch. It's kind of heartwarming. I love the scene where Sam's pet dog actually fights one of the vampires and knocks him into a bathtub full of holy water. It gives me chills every time. I love the ending. I love the climax. I love the cover of People Are Strange by the Doors that plays throughout the movie. I love the last line. I love the grandpa character. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about this movie. I love everything about it. It's just awesome. But I've reviewed it before, and I've talked about it on this channel a lot, so let's go ahead and move on. Before we unveil our number 1 choice, which you probably already know what it is, let's get a few honorable mentions out of the way. Let's go ahead and say Return of the Vampire with Bela Lugosi, which isn't a Dracula movie. He's not playing Dracula, but he's playing a very similar character, and he has a werewolf henchman. It's black and white. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good cemetery scenes, a lot of gloomy, ominous atmosphere. I just love it. Bela Lugosi's always great, and that's probably my favorite horror movie he's done, other than, of course, Dracula. Also, Let the Right One In, Let Me In, which was its American adaptation. 30 Days a Night I thought was pretty good. And let's go ahead and say all the other Hammer vampire movies that aren't part of the Dracula series. Vampire Lovers, Kiss of the Vampire, all the good ones, except maybe Lust for a Vampire. That could have been better. But yeah, all the good Hammer horror vampire movies. And any other ones that I might have missed, I'll leave in the description below. I'm sure there's some obvious ones that I'm forgetting. But anyway, let's go and get to the number 1. Number one is, of course, Fright Night, and I'm not going to go into any more detail because I just reviewed this recently for the second time. This is the first movie I ever reviewed on this channel, and I just redid that review like last week sometime because the first review I did, I wasn't very good at it back then. I didn't do it justice, so I redid it. I think I did a better job, hopefully, on the new one. But just to summarize, Chris Sarandon's badass as Jerry Dandridge, the main vampire. I love William Ragsdale as Charlie. I love Peter Vincent. Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent, kind of a Van Helsing type character. They're great lead characters. Stephen Jeffries steals every scene he's in as Evil Ed. I love the atmosphere, the dark, gloomy. The house Jerry lives in is really creepy looking and old. I love it. I love the neighborhood they live in. I love all the scenery, I love the characters. It's a lot of humor. It balances horror and humor perfectly. For more info, just check out my my review of Fright Night, which I did last week. And I've talked about this in other videos before. I'll be here all day if I list them all. But yeah, for more info, just check out other videos on this channel. Chances are I might have at least mentioned Fright Night. I love it. It's my favorite vampire movie of all time. It's a 10 out of 10. It's in my top 5 movies ever. It's just amazing. All right, guys. So there you have it. My top 10 favorite vampire movies. Be sure to leave your choices in the comments below. And if I missed any, also let me know. But I will list more in the description as I think of them. I'm Hellhound. Thank you for watching my late night spook show here on the Horror Metal channel. Until next time, and watch out for those vampires. Later.